What would happen to the world if people suddenly disappeared? In this video, we're going to talk about what would happen in such an event, starting with the impact on wildlife and nature. If humans were to mysteriously vanish from the face of the earth tomorrow, the immediate reaction of the animal kingdom would be confusion. Sounds that once signaled danger or excitement, such as car alarms, sirens, and shouting, would abruptly cease. Many animals would likely feel safer in their environments, leading to less stress and potentially longer lifespans for some species. As days turned into weeks, wild animals would gradually become less wary of empty human habitats. They'd begin exploring our homes, farms, and cities in search of food and resources. Animals would raid supermarkets, gobbling up perishable goods and causing widespread spoilage. Over time, they'd feast on crops in the fields, decimating farmlands. With no human intervention, pests and invasive species would flourish, wreaking havoc on plant and animal life alike. Without humans to cull over, grazing animals like deer and livestock could destroy delicate ecosystems, trampling vegetation and compacting soil. However, nature is resilient. In the absence of humans, wildlife would gradually reclaim much of our built environment. Fields would revert to grasslands, farmlands to forests, and abandoned buildings would be swallowed by vegetation. Within a few decades, most cities would be unrecognizable, transformed into lush jungles teeming with wildlife. But it's not just animals who would benefit from humanity's disappearance. Plants would also flourish without us. Crops would grow wild, creating vast thickets of grain. Food would be abundant, at least initially, until pests and invasive species began to take their toll. However, even with these challenges, the natural world would thrive. Wild areas would expand, encompassing much of the land currently used for agriculture and human habitation. As more sunlight reached the ground, plants would grow taller and live longer. Some species might even evolve more quickly than expected due to the sudden abundance of resources. Of course, there are some places where life would continue to thrive even without humans. The deep sea would remain largely unaffected by our absence, with creatures living their ancient lives thousands of meters below the surface. Likewise, the vast array of microorganisms thriving in soil and water would continue to flourish, breaking down dead organic matter and cycling nutrients back into the environment. In fact, these microscopic organisms would play a key role in the rapid colonization of abandoned human habitats by plants and animals. Fungi, bacteria, and other decomposers would quickly break down the remains of human settlements, recycling the materials into the soil and making them available for new life to take hold. But what about the built environment? What would happen to the cars, buildings, and other structures that define our modern world? The news of people suddenly disappearing would send shockwaves around the globe. Governments would scramble to understand what had happened and how to respond. But with no people to govern or infrastructure to manage, these efforts would quickly fall apart. Within hours, power stations would shut down in the absence of maintenance and security. Within days, water treatment plants would stop functioning, cutting off clean water supplies to cities. Within weeks, food shortages would start to emerge as supply chains collapsed and grocery stores were emptied. Global economies would grind to a halt, financial markets would crash, and trade routes would fall into disuse. As the world descended into chaos, the human-made environment would begin to decay. Untended farmlands would quickly be reclaimed by nature. Fields would become overgrown, fences would crumble, and barns would rot. Roads and highways, no longer maintained, would quickly deteriorate, becoming impassable to vehicles. Skyscrapers would fall into disrepair, their facades crumbling and windows shattering. Bridges and other structures would rust and corrode, collapsing under the weight of neglect. The absence of human activity would cause dramatic changes in the physical landscape. Canals and waterways would silt up in the absence of dredging. Beaches would erode without replenishment and coastal defenses would collapse, inundating low-lying areas. Rivers would change course and new wetlands would form. Over time, the world would become a much greener place as vegetation reclaimed much of the built environment. Forests would spread into cities and towns, while fields and farmlands reverted to grassland and scrubland. However, some aspects of our modern world would prove more resilient. Large infrastructure projects such as dams, bridges, and canals would stand for centuries, silently bearing witness to the world's abandonment. These structures, built to withstand the test of time, would become relics of a bygone era, their purpose long forgotten. Vast underground facilities such as bunkers, mines, and subway tunnels would also persist, offering shelter to those intrepid enough to explore them. These subterranean labyrinths would echo with the sounds of dripping water and scurrying creatures, a testament to the ingenuity of a species that once called them home. In the absence of human maintenance, many of our technological marvels would fall into disrepair. Satellites would drift out of orbit and communications networks would fall silent. Computers would lose power and cease functioning, while smartphones would become bricks in our pockets. Cars would rust in the streets, abandoned and purposeless. Over time, the intricate web of technology that once defined our modern world would unravel, leaving behind only fragments of its former glory. Yet amidst the decay, there would be beauty. Untouched by human hands, nature would reclaim vast areas of our built environment, creating a world of tangled vines, overgrown pathways, and hidden glades. Cities would become enchanted forests, whispering tales of a vanished civilization. And as the seasons changed, the landscape would shift from lush green to fiery orange to blanket white, painting a masterpiece of natural beauty on a canvas of decay. But what about the cultural landscape? What would happen to our homes, our schools, and our places of worship? Our cultural landscape would bear the brunt of our disappearance. Homes would be ransacked and stripped of valuables. Schools and universities would fall into disuse, their libraries crumbling and their classrooms echoing with silence. Places of worship would become crumbling ruins, their pews and altars swallowed by weeds. Our cultural heritage would be lost as museums and historical sites fell into disrepair. Statues and monuments would be toppled, their inscriptions erased. Works of art would be defaced and our collective memory would fade. Over time, even our languages would begin to be forgotten, replaced by the sounds of birdsong and the rustle of leaves. And what of our personal histories? Our diaries, letters, and photographs would become faded relics, offering glimpses into the lives of a species that once populated this world. Our stories would become fragmented, our voices silenced. Our history would be lost, forgotten by the relentless march of time. But perhaps most haunting of all would be the empty spaces we left behind. Our chairs, desks, and beds would remain, silently mocking us with our absence. Our clothes would hang in our closets, our books would sit on our shelves, and our toys would gather dust in our living rooms. Our world would become a museum of memories, a shrine to a species that once walked this earth. It's hard to imagine a world without people, but it is a fascinating thought experiment that can teach us a lot about our impact on the planet. If humans were to suddenly disappear, the world as we know it would come to an end. Nature would quickly reclaim much of our built environment, and wildlife would flourish in the absence of human activity. But our cultural landscape would be lost forever, a tragic reminder of a species that once called this world home. So let us appreciate the beauty and complexity of our world while we have it, knowing that it may not last forever. It is important to remember that our world is delicately balanced and that we have a responsibility to protect it. From the tiniest microorganism to the largest animal, every species plays a role in the intricate web of life that sustains us all. So let us strive to live in harmony with nature, for we are all part of something greater than ourselves. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed learning about what would happen to the world if people suddenly disappeared. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.